Welcome to another conversation in People in Fundraising. This podcast features interviews with nonprofit professionals who discuss their career journeys, lessons learned, and enthusiasm for working in fundraising. And here is your host, the founder of People in Fundraising, Tim Wilson.
Hello, everyone. My name is Tim Wilson, and today is Wednesday, August 24th, 2022. Today, I am really excited to welcome Marci Romney to the People in Fundraising Professional Conversations webcast. Marci, how are you?
Doing great. Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yes, thank you. Good to see you again. Marci and I knew each other a few years ago in Boston, Massachusetts, and for several reasons, I'm excited to have you on the program today. One of them is that your nonprofit organization is outside of higher education and healthcare fundraising. And in just a moment, we'll get into what your nonprofit is involved with and the name of it and such. So in terms of broadening my interviewee slate, you're one of the first people I reached out to help with that goal. So thank you for being willing.
Yeah, that's great.
Marci is the director of Coafrica.
Yep.
And I'd love to hear, Marci, introductory here. What is Coafrica? What is your role with Coafrica, and how long have you been affiliated with it?
Sure. Yeah. So Coafrica, we're a nonprofit. When people ask what we do, I say the really short answer is we construct classrooms in Africa. That is, if we could boil it all down, that's exactly what we do.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I'm the director. Have been here with Coafrica for about 2 years, going on pushing 3 now. And it's been fabulous. So Coafrica just believes really strongly in breaking the poverty cycle to give kids an opportunity to improve their lives, their families' lives, their communities' lives, and therefore just, raise everybody's level of education and ability there in Africa. So
awesome.
What a lot of people don't realize, I think, in the US is that one of the biggest problems in sub-Saharan Africa is that children often can't attend school because they just don't have a classroom. And
Wow.
I know it sounds crazy. Matt and I went down and looked and saw for ourselves. They often have 2 choices. They can go to school and attend school in a crumbling, rundown, usually community-built building, which is unsafe. There are horrible tragedy stories of kids being hurt or killed in, walls crumbling, roofs coming down, that kind of thing.
Wow.
Or, so they have that option, or they have the option to learn outside. And in Africa, they say it's a classroom under the trees.
Okay.
So they'll learn outside, which you think would work okay. I mean, there's obvious problems with that, but you think that'd be maybe a decent solution, except that Africa has rainy seasons.
Yes, that's the first thing that came to my mind.
Yeah, you've got rainy seasons 4 to 6 months of the year.
Yeah.
That means your class is just shut down.
Wow.
And in many of the countries similar to the US, they've got exams they have to pass in order to advance to the next level of education. Grade standard is often what they use there.
Okay.
And if your class is shut down half the year, you can't pass the exam. I mean, it just sort of creates this perpetual holding back. And eventually the kids will give up and they get involved in, all kinds of other things that most of us would rather them not get involved in.
Sure. Yeah.
So we try to address that problem and help provide classrooms so they can attend school and pass their exams and create opportunities for themselves and their families.
That is awesome. And thank you for that overview. It's bringing up all sorts of questions in my mind about how the nonprofit Coafrica operates. So if you want to shed some light on that, like, does your nonprofit purchase the land, or do they fund the building supplies, or what does it do?
Yeah, good question. So the Co in Coafrica stands for coalition. We believe really strongly in developing strong coalitions with other nonprofits. And what we have found is that the best way, we kind of experimented with different ways of how to do what we wanted to do, which is provide classrooms.
Yeah.
I found that the best way to do that was to create coalitions with nonprofits there in those African countries. We feel really strongly about hiring local there. And we often get asked, I want to go on an expedition and go build a school. We say, that's great. And that would be really great for you. That's not the best thing for them. We want them to see people in their communities come together, help build this school, and have these mentor examples in their lives. I could be that someday. I could do cement. I could learn how to, do construction and work with wood, or, we just want it to bless that community as much as possible. So back to how we do what we do. And we have two kind of key coalitions that we are able to accomplish most of what we do with. And one is called, a very original, Build a Classroom. That's their nonprofit.
That's right
simple,
to the point.
Right?
Yes. Yeah. You know what their mission is.
Yeah. And that's the organization we work with in Malawi.
Okay.
And then this other organization, which is much bigger, they go by BASIA, but it's BASIA, which stands for Build a School Initiative in Africa. So BASIA. And they are in the other countries where we're working, mostly kind of Northwestern Africa, which is Togo, Benin, Ghana, Nigeria, that area. Dabbled a little bit in other countries, but mainly focused there with BASIA. So we formed this coalition together. We have these communities submit what we call a PAF. It's a project assessment form, so we can see what is the state of the school right now. Give us a picture of what's on the ground right now. And we've got people from BASIA or Build a School Initiative. They go out, they do a community asset kind of assessment to see what the community can give for the school, how they can contribute. We absolutely do not want to be giving schools like gifts. We want the community to feel like they are a critical part of what we're doing. So they start with this project assessment form. We do a community contribution assessment to make sure that the community can contribute. We quantify that as about 20% of the value of the project. The community has to contribute that.
Okay.
They can do that financially. Usually that's not much of an option in the areas where we are. It usually comes in the form of unskilled labor, materials, sometimes getting the government involved to contribute towards that 20%. Or student alumni can come back and contribute towards that 20%.
Yeah.
And then together we, see if our boards both approve those projects with these two NGOs. As soon as they're approved, then we go forward, and we've got a model that builds. It's a very basic structure, but it is the nicest thing in these communities because they just don't have anything. So a very basic kind of cement block, 4 rooms, and a little teacher's office kind of supply area space in the middle, with a roof. That's it. They just are so excited to have a place that is safe from the elements. They can learn.
I
don't know if that answered your question.
No, that's and yes, that was terrific. And I've got a few other follow-up questions. So that you mentioned the 20% kind of community investment is what you aim for. Does that include the cost of the hiring the teacher and her or his salary, or is that strictly the infrastructure?
Strictly the infrastructure.
Okay.
So if you remember those 2 scenarios that we're trying to address, we have had, I should back up. Every single time we have built a classroom, it has increased enrollment at those schools.
Nice.
Because the communities are just so excited, and kids start attending again who haven't been attending. But we're addressing current classes that don't have a place to meet.
Mm-hmm.
So usually there's already teachers and students who are ready to move into those rooms. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's not typically that these schools, I mean, these countries, they want to educate their kids too. And so they'll have teachers and the opportunity to learn in one of those two situations, but it's just not a very effective way to learn. So we don't have to do so much in terms of teacher sourcing or training because the teachers are already there.
Oh, okay. That's great.
Yeah.
Excellent. And this follow-up may be just, kind of a Western mentality. Like when I think of a school, you mentioned the infrastructure, you mentioned the 4 classrooms, the teacher's space, the roof. Is there a place dedicated for eating, for restrooms, for?
So schools there are very different than they are here in the US. You will find they'll have a bathroom facility. Most of our schools are in rural locations. And what you see there are typically community built pit latrines.
Oh, okay.
But it does what it's supposed to do.
Yes, yeah.
And we actually have been working with a nonprofit who constructs bathrooms, and they shared a story where they actually built toilets in this rural community, and within 2 weeks they were broken.
Oh, wow.
Because the community didn't know how to use flush toilets. And so they were flushing, I don't know if this is too much information, but they don't have toilet paper, so they use leaves and sticks, and that's what they were flushing down these toilets.
Sure.
So they were broken within 2 weeks. So,
yeah.
In the ideal world, everyone would have a flush toilet and know how to use it, but it's just not the case in a lot of these areas.
Yeah, and
So
it sounds like
latrines. Yeah.
Oh, okay. And it sounds like that is outside of the scope of what Coafrica does with the partners. It really is just we are
Just
focusing on the classroom. Yeah.
Yeah.
What about transportation to schools? Is there a nonprofit you partner with on the ground, or is it the students get there however they can get there?
You got to step way back from the US mentality of schools.
Yeah.
So these areas where we are, kids are walking 3 to 5 kilometers easily to get to school.
Wow.
And their family might have a bicycle, and that would be their prized possession. And so there's no busing system, there's no vehicles to get them there.
Right.
But they walk, and it's common. And you see them, they're out walking in groups. They're very social and very happy.
Yes.
And they walk for hours.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah.
So transportation is not something that we worry about, but we do really try to find, we just think it's most effective for us to focus on classroom construction.
Yeah.
But we do know that there are other issues that feed into the success of education. So we try hard to find NGOs who help us with bathroom construction if that's needed. And by that, most of our schools, that means constructing more pit latrines.
Yeah.
Clean water, teacher development, desks and classroom materials, and school meals. Those are what we found to be the most impactful towards these kids' education.
Okay.
So yes, and if I could fast forward maybe a year or two, I would love to say that we have good, strong coalition partners in all of those areas.
Sure.
We don't right now, but we have some in this country and some in this country, and so it's an active goal of ours to develop that.
Terrific.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's great insight. So thank you for sharing that. And you mentioned having schools in Malawi and Southeastern Africa and Northwestern Africa, Togo, Benin, Ghana, and so forth. How do you go about sourcing coalition partners? Do they typically come to you because they've seen the work you've done, or is it the reverse that Coafrica looks for partnerships on the ground? Is there a 50-50 blend?
I'd say we're relatively young. And so it has been more of us trying to develop those relationships. I feel like we're at a little bit of a turning point now where we've got one of our coalition partners meeting with the government of Benin because they reached out. They saw our schools, and Africa has a big problem with a lot of nonprofits come in but don't necessarily finish what they start. So there's a lot of unfinished good people trying to do good things but weren't able to complete it for whatever reason.
Sure.
And we've had similar responses in Nigeria where they've seen that we've now completed several schools in their country and we've done what we said we're going to do, and we're involving the community. And so it's checking some boxes for them, and now they're wanting to get involved. So we've seen that a little bit from the government side. We're seeing that a little bit from other coalitions, nonprofit coalitions. I hope that it continues.
Yeah.
But I'd say we've done a lot of seeking, and we're maybe hopefully turning a page to be sought after a little bit more. But
excellent.
Anyway, we find them is great.
Yeah, that's true. Yes.
Yeah. The how doesn't matter.
Yes.
Would love to have more partnerships there.
Definitely. So Marci, if we can rewind a little bit, let's talk about how Coafrica started, where it started, and how long you've been affiliated with it as the director.
Sure. Yeah. So I've been in with Coafrica for 2 years. Just a little over 2 years now. And it started, the founders feel really strongly about human trafficking, actually, and really felt like the way to get at the root of human trafficking was education. And so they received this large anonymous donation and decided, instead of funding these other nonprofits, let's start our own. That's how Coafrica began. And they've since, they're still involved with Coafrica, but they dabble in addressing current human trafficking. So I kind of feel like they're doing this two-pronged system, and Coafrica is trying to get at the root of that and help to prevent that going forward. And then on their own, they're involved with some other organizations that's working with current human trafficking. So yeah, I mean, that's how we started. And with this passion that education can change lives, increase opportunities, and really make a difference. And and how to increase that from all the information and statistics that they've read and found, and they had funded projects on their own before Coafrica existed. This is certainly not their first classroom construction in Africa. Done 15 or 20 schools before we came to be.
Awesome.
And they really feel like the best way to impact that in Africa right now is classroom construction. So
that's so cool.
So that's where we are.
That's dynamite. And where is Coafrica based? Is it in the US?
Salt Lake City, Utah. Yep.
Excellent.
We're here. We're pretty small in terms of numbers. There's not very many of us. But we're trying to do a lot of good,
Yes. And is there a website where people can find out more information?
Yeah, it's Coafrica, Coafrica, coafrica.org.
Great. Because I looked on the website in preparation for our conversation, and there's great bios of you and other people, and you have a board as well, a board of directors. So that, just bringing in different expertise for the mission.
We always are trying to reevaluate and make sure we're making the most of the funds that we have, trying to make the biggest impact. So
sure, absolutely. So Marci, if we could talk a little bit more about those partnerships, because I'm very curious. The nonprofit's based in the United States. It has some successful partnerships with those two NGOs, nonprofits you mentioned earlier. how else do you look for partnerships? Other specific attributes, reputations? Do you look at the area of greatest need first and then try and find a partner? Or just talk about kind of that partner identification or coalition identification process.
Sure. I think first of all, when we say coalition partner, we're including communities in that. We definitely, every time we build a school, we want that community to be part of the coalition that's building the school.
Great. Yeah.
But in terms of other organizations that we're trying to get involved with, we've typically looked at the areas where we are building, either in that specific region or by country, because sometimes nonprofits are just in, a specific African country.
Yeah.
And then look at mission statements and see what would really mesh well with what we do.
Oh, okay.
Some of those other coalitions that we've either done projects with or in talks with. One is Mary's Meals. They provide a nutritional porridge. I mean, I don't think anybody in the US would think it was tasty at all, but but it's so needed. And those kids, it increases enrollment so much because the kids know they're going to get a meal.
Oh, awesome.
So Mary's Meals, they're fantastic. LDS Charities has partnered with us in providing bathrooms and clean water. They've split cost of schools in certain places. So they've been fantastic. Village Book Builders, they go in and build libraries, but they also, I know it's pretty cool, but they also set up like a mentor, online virtual tutoring.
Oh,
yeah. So if you're here in the US, you can contact them and set up this kind of mentoring system with students who are they're not just in Africa, but they do have some in the similar countries where we are in Africa. So
cool.
So there are many that just are so involved and passionate about their own mission, and we just feel like it's really common for nonprofits to go too broad.
Oh, okay.
And kind of lose sight of the goal.
Sure.
So we feel like if we are honed in on classroom construction, and we can find other coalitions that are honed in on teacher training or bathroom construction beyond these pit latrines, which we maybe don't consider the most sanitary option.
Sure.
Let me let my dog out.
Yeah, totally. It's real life here. I'll keep talking for a moment. You can see the map behind Marci. So
I'm back. I'm sorry. Probably gonna hear
totally fine.
in the background.
That's quite all right.
One ring of the doorbell and she goes bonkers. But
well, and I think I illustrated that point you just made, where nonprofits, whether it's mission creep accidentally or and I started asking questions about aspects beyond the classroom. So I'm glad that you've in the conversation really brought it back to this is what Coafrica does, and we stick to this. We find partnerships that do the other supporting structures.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I can see how that happens, having been there. And
okay.
I mean, you just partly why you're in a nonprofit is because you want to help, right? And so you see that there's all these needs. I can see, it would be so easy to just say, forget the mission. We want to address everything. But I don't think that's the path to a successful nonprofit. So we feel like the way to combat that is to establish these coalitions and then really get into improving the lives of these community members.
Awesome. And I'm so glad you just mentioned you've seen some in person. And I think earlier in the conversation, you alluded to that as well. So that was one of my questions for you is, have you been able to visit whether prospective sites or completed projects through Coafrica? And where have you been? What's that been like?
Yeah. So I actually took my first trip to Africa in April of this year
Oh,
because,
wow.
I mean, if you think about it, I started in the summer of 2020 and
Okay.
everything was shut down.
Yes, yes.
And then we were going to take a trip last year to go look at all our projects, but the requirements for COVID, maybe a mandatory 14-day quarantine when you cross borders, it was too unpredictable and we had too
Yeah.
many borders to cross. So
Okay.
so we pushed it back another year and we finally did it
Oh, nice.
in April, and it was fantastic. We went to Togo, Benin, and Ghana, those
Awesome.
three kind of up north, and then we went down and hit Malawi, Zambia, Zimbabwe.
Wow.
So,
Wow.
so it was a great trip, and we saw it all. We saw prospective projects that
Okay.
they were filling out those project assessment forms for us. We would review those and go take a look and meet some of the head teachers and the students and just kind of
Oh,
see,
wow. Wow.
see what
Wow.
was going on in that area. We
Yeah.
attended some, we call them groundbreakings and grand openings. So groundbreaking is the beginning of the project, and we like to have a little short ceremony, and the head boy and the head girl will often dig a shovel full of dirt, and
Oh, beautiful.
so we'll do that. And we visited some projects that were under construction.
Okay.
I was able to carry a bucket of sand.
Oh, all
They're
right.
so heavy. And those women just, it's like a 5-gallon bucket. They just put it on their heads and walk over. And,
Wow.
I'm like struggling to just carry it with my hand.
Sure. Yeah.
So we visited some projects under construction and then went to some grand openings, like I mentioned, which is when their first project's completed and we're just
Yeah.
opening it up to the school and the community. And then we visited some of our projects that were already completed just to see how maintenance is going, how they're being used, look at some of our impact metrics, just to make sure we're doing what we think we're doing, which is increasing enrollment, helping kids stay in school, hitting all these markers we've got. So it was awesome.
My goodness. Yeah.
It was a whirlwind, but it was great.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Just to put you on the spot a little bit, is there, as we talk about the visits, is there one experience, one groundbreaking open house that comes out in your mind?
Yeah, and we've been focused on this one project. The name of the school is Chilima. It's in rural Lilongwe, Malawi. So Lilongwe is a big city, but it's out where there is nothing. It's about an hour and a half out of the city.
Okay.
And we have built 2 blocks there. So a block of 4 classrooms and a block of 3 classrooms. They need another block of 3 classrooms. So this is what we've been talking about and kind of generating, okay, how are we going to fundraise for this? I mean, this has kind of been in my mind anyway.
Yeah.
When we were able to go visit, like I said, we stopped by these completed projects. This is in the category of completed projects. So we're thinking we're going to stop by, maybe spend half an hour, interview some people, take a look at the buildings. But we showed up and these women are singing and they're dressed all in their beautiful traditional clothing. And they had gathered, this was on a Saturday, they had gathered all the students and the teachers and they wanted to put on this presentation for us. And
oh, wow.
We're so grateful to have classrooms.
Yeah.
And it was so impactful.
Sure.
We took with us these representatives of LDS Charities because they had just agreed to provide desks and textbooks to this school.
Oh, wow.
And so in the middle of this, celebration basically that they're having, we turned the time over to these this older couple to kind of announce that they will be providing desks and textbooks.
Wow.
And this is the moment that really got me. I think I expected everything else because I've been doing it for a couple of years.
Yeah.
But they announced the desks first, and we're sitting there looking at hundreds of kids in front of us. And those kids, the kids, were cheering and crying for joy for desks.
Oh my goodness.
That just blew me away. I get chills even talking about it. And I thought, oh my word, my kids are so spoiled. That was my first thought. But they were so excited. And
That's awesome.
Goodwell is the name of the man who runs Build a Classroom, which is the nonprofit we are coalition partners with in Malawi.
Oh, okay.
So they're speaking Chichewa, so he was kind of translating both ways for us. And he said they're crying because they've never had a desk at this school, ever.
Wow.
So then, they're just, they sing and they're just so excited. So we get them to calm down a little bit, and then, because they hadn't said the textbooks yet.
Right, yeah.
And they announced the textbooks, and same reaction. I thought, what American kid would cry for joy knowing that their school is getting textbooks? Like, you just don't see that here.
Yeah.
And so this community, they have been so involved. They dug the foundation. I could send a video. They had hundreds show up to dig this foundation.
Yeah.
And fill it. And, we've got women with babies on their backs carrying buckets, and men. And it's kind of like a celebration day almost. They were there.
Sure.
So this has become their project. And anyway, so we really want to do this other classroom block for the 3 more classrooms. We want to give them 3 more classrooms. We asked them, okay, well, who would use these 3 classrooms? And they said it's what we call first, second, and third grade.
Oh, okay.
And currently they have over 100 kids in each of those classes, and they're meeting outside. I mean, it's
goodness.
Wow. So that one. That's my answer.
Yeah.
I mean, you could not visit that place and not leave loving it. I mean, loving the people, their enthusiasm, their dedication to educating their own kids. I mean, it was the best part of my trip. A highlight for sure. Yeah.
That's beautifully said. What a great moment. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you just mentioned the classroom needs, first, second, third grade. How many students can fit into one of those blocks? Whether there's desks or without desks, or whatever the structure is.
So we don't tell them how many can fit in there. What we found is they're going to do what they're going to do. So they might tell us that, we'll put 50 or 60 in a classroom.
Wow.
It's usually closer to 80 to 100.
Whoa.
And that's a whole nother issue, but it's not something that we can influence on our end. So we're helping to provide the space for them. But we're not the headmaster of the school, so we can't necessarily make a change there, even though it would be great.
Right.
But they cram them in. They have these desks. The typical desks they use are different from what we use here in the US. It's kind of a bench with a desk.
Okay.
The intent is that 2 kids would sit on this bench desk.
Oh.
They will fit 4 easily.
Okay, wow.
And then have kids sitting on the floor. And I mean, we even saw some where the kids were hanging in the windows from outside because there wasn't room to sit.
Oh, wow.
And they just want an education so badly. And they,
wow, yeah.
I mean,
wow.
It's a different world.
Yeah, that is amazing and very sobering, grounding to realize that. I think a lot of people have a theoretical, when they think of it outside their own world, a theoretical understanding or a vision of what that looks like in other countries and continents. But to hear the story is really powerful. Yeah.
And they're, I think the interesting thing is they have hardly any behavioral problems.
Wow.
Because the kids know that's their path out.
Oh my goodness. So
they consider it a huge blessing to be able to attend school.
Wow.
And so you've got 80 to 100 kids in a classroom and 1 teacher and no behavioral issues. I mean, can you imagine that here? You wouldn't see that in the US. Yeah.
No, wow. Wow.
Yeah.
I would love if you could send me that video you mentioned a little while ago about that, and if it's okay with you, when I publish our conversation, if I could include that as a link.
I'd be happy to.
That would be great. You mentioned donations and such. So like, can private citizens donate through your website?
Yeah, absolutely. We've got on our website a couple different ways to donate. You can donate generally towards projects. We also are very proud to say we have a private foundation donation that covers all of our admin costs. So
wow.
Every penny of every donation goes to Africa. And that
Awesome.
I love to be able to say that, because I would feel, I think, guilty if I were taking a percentage of people's donations. So
Sure, yeah. That's
so
terrific.
you can make a general donation towards anything, or if you're on our site, you can donate towards specific items. And we just thought, people feel passionate about what they feel passionate about. So
yeah,
you want to buy a desk? Great, there's an option to buy a desk. You want to give a student scholarship? Great, you can do that. You want to do teacher supplies? You can do that. Even though we construct classrooms, we still see the value of these peripheries.
Oh, and yeah.
So there are options to donate towards more than just the classroom building.
Oh, terrific.
So yeah, it's all on our website, and we absolutely would love any donations, especially towards that Chilima school. Yes. That's our current goal. We just want to get that school built.
Oh, terrific. Yes. How do you get updates? You mentioned Chilima school. How do you get updates on the progress of these projects? And how often are you communicating phone, video with coalition people on the ground?
Yeah, with our coalition partners. We have a weekly Zoom with each of them. Often that is enough. They'll send both email reports, sometimes through WhatsApp, because that can be easier.
Yeah.
Pictures and videos of what's happening at our sites.
Oh, cool.
And sometimes it's more often if there's an issue or something that really needs to be discussed. But usually just the once a week contact in person over Zoom is sufficient to do that.
Excellent. Okay.
And I really consider it one of the greatest things in my life to associate with those people. They are the most kind-hearted, generous individuals. It's really one of my favorite things about my job, is to be able to associate with them. So,
oh, that's very heartwarming. That's beautiful. Yeah. Terrific. Well, Marci, we've been talking for about 45 minutes. Is it? And I feel like I could ask another hour's worth of questions, but I want to be respectful of your time. Any parting thoughts about, you just mentioned what it means for you to personally be involved with Coafrica. Where do you, I guess I'm kind of giving you a question for a parting thought, but where do you see Coafrica down the road? What would be some of your goals for it in the future?
Yeah, we actually were just discussing this.
Okay.
We have kind of built our annual cycle, so it's heavy construction, and then the last quarter of the year is a little bit slower construction, so that we can reevaluate and reassess and do some metrics and impact evaluation and tweak things if we need to. So we're approaching that point right now.
Okay.
So we've been thinking about this a lot. As the board has met and decided, we aren't necessarily interested in becoming a very large nonprofit, because our size allows us to be pretty nimble in what we want to do. So we are committing to roughly 12 to 18 schools a year, and want to stay that course for as long as we possibly can.
Yes.
And that's the plan.
Oh, that's awesome. And I know one of the charities you mentioned, LDS Charities, that's affiliated with the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And so, it sounds like both, within the United States and international and nonprofit coalition partners on the ground, that feels like a very stable foundation for continuing to do the 12 to 18.
I hope so.
Yeah.
We've got good people that we're working with, and that's been a huge reason why we're able to do what we're able to do. So yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's great. Anything you'd like to share in conclusion, Marci?
I used to work in the private sector, and now that I'm in nonprofits, I think the thing that I love the most about being in nonprofit work is that there's not this sense of competition. It's more of, how can we work together to make the world a better place? And so one thing that I think I would just ask everyone is to figure out what you're passionate about and go make the world a better place. Is it classroom construction? Great. Check out Coafrica. Is it something else? It might be something more local. It might be something that you've got ties to in some way. But, I think as a world force, we can make a lot of good. So, and
absolutely
change the world. Change the world. So
that's a great charge for listeners, because I think at least in my own experience, most people I know have good intentions and they want to be generous, but it's that taking that next step of I want to, but how can I? And sometimes it does feel overwhelming to think I want to make a big impact, but is my $15 going to do anything?
Yeah, it does.
But it does.
It does.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And I would say it doesn't have to be financial contribution. I know we have a lot of volunteers and interns. I know other organizations are the same. And so if a financial contribution isn't feasible, then there are other ways to get involved. So.
Absolutely. Yeah, well said. Well, Marci, I've really enjoyed talking with you and learning about Coafrica, hearing about your passion for the work that Coafrica does and the impact it has. I mean, that is just generationally transformative. And
absolutely.
To hear that these students are leaning into the classroom to hear the lesson and walking 5 kilometers, that's just amazing. So really have enjoyed this conversation, and the visuals I get in my mind as you've talked about what you've seen and observed on the ground. So beautiful, beautiful work. Thank you.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Tim. It's been great. Yeah.
Yeah.
We talk about it for hours, so you have to stop me.
Well, I've suggested to a few people I've talked with that whether it's a part 2 or follow up, a couple of years or so down the road, I'd love to revisit with you and hear how Coafrica is going. So
that'd be great. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, thank you again, Marci, for your time today. And thank you to our viewership, our audience. You can find Marci Romney's conversation on our website, peopleinfundraising.com, as well as I'll be posting it on LinkedIn in the next few weeks. So thank you for your support of this initiative. And I'm sure you will find Marci's conversation just really rich and very moving. So thank you again.
Thanks, Tim.